Hi everyone, it's been a bit of a time since I've done a video, so I thought, right, I've been digging out all the stuff for the 5-inch gauge Manor. I thought it's probably a good idea to sort of talk you through where that is, what I've been doing to it, and kind of sort of a bit of background and what's sort of next. Sort of overall, the 5-inch gauge Manor is a cross between Torquay Manor, design by Martin Evans, and the Penrhos Grange model done. I can't remember the chap's name now, but it's run through Poly Model Engineering these days. So there's a few things where she's called Torquay Manor design, drawing, whatever, and then there's some bits where we've got some Penrhos Grange castings for cylinders, for example. So I've had to make some changes and go from there for that. But we'll talk you through it, and I'll show you what we've got. Right, okay. So hopefully you're going to see this all okay. Sort of a bit of a strange angle. But what you can see here is we've got the drawings for Torquay Manor. I've got a nice big drawing board to stick all this stuff on. So I'll just pull this out a little bit. And what you've got is, if you've never really built any of this kind of stuff before, or maybe you're just getting into it and just looking for some sort of ideas or whatever, these are the kind of things you get in the drawings. So taking some, so it gives you all your dimensions, nominal dimensions, that kind of thing. Sort of areas you've got to look out for, some of the detail, and there's all sorts of things in here. So this is a set of drawings for the pony truck, driving wheels, all that kind of good stuff. And what you normally do is you go out and you buy a set of castings and do that how you want to do it. Set of materials for the frames, and these days it's much easier. You can just go to places like Model Engineering Laser or Laser Cutters and give them these kind of drawings and say, I want 2 of those, please, or whatever else. So there's a frame drawing, for example. My path to this loco is slightly different in that I went out and bought from a dealer a part-built loco, and we're just going to talk about it in a little bit. So I'm not a Great Western expert, but what we've got here is there was a Manor class and a Grange class, and they used quite a lot of sort of what they call standardized for the time parts. Now in 5-inch gauge, there's also a Manor and a Grange. Now the Manor's from, I think it was designed by Martin Evans from about the 1970s, I think. Yeah. So what you can see here is this is Torquay Manor, and these are the build-in notes from Model Engineer. And again, it's got some sort of bits of drawings. You've got some dimensions and stuff. So these drawings here are also the main drawing parts, drawings and plans. And they're all in here, and it gives you a bit of a description. Now, this isn't a how-to necessarily. This tends to sort of point out some of the major pitfalls you might come across, but a lot of it is left to you for this sort of level of model. And someone's helpfully put the list of what's in there, and I don't think there's anything missing either, so that's good. So there's, for my engine, quite a fair bit of it. I think it started as a Torquay Manor, which is this one. We also have Penrhos Grange, 5-inch gauge, and again the full size Grange and Manor shared a lot of components, and so in 5-inch gauge you can do the same thing. It's Penrhos Grange, same thing again. I think this is Model Engineer. I don't think I've got any dates. October 2002, so a much more up-to-date model. I understand that Poly Model Engineering still do all the castings and bits and pieces for Penrhos Grange, and there's quite a bit of swap over. But essentially what's happened, I believe, is someone's had a Torquay Manor chassis, sort of done it in the original builds right in the 70s for this one, and then had a break from it maybe, and then gone, right, I'll start it again. And then obviously Penrhos Grange has come along with all the extra sort of fancy bits and pieces. Anyway, let's go and have a look at the actual loco itself and what's going on. So I've got all the plans for Torquay Manor. I've got a good idea which parts of Torquay Manor and which was Penrhos Grange, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And I say I've got all the Penrhos Grange sort of articles from Model Engineer, or whichever one it was in. But yeah, let's go and have a look at the loco as it is now. Right, okay, we'll do this sort of freehand, and then we'll sit at the bench and talk through some of the detailed stuff. So this is 7803 Barcoat Manor, and this is the 5-inch gauge Manor loco. Sort of talked a bit about. I've finally got around to digging out and getting back on with it now. The 9F, who is sat in a nice comfortable winter quarters, is all cleaned up and it's technically ready for the next run, but we'll see when that is. So as you can see, actually, it's pretty well advanced. So we've got the chassis made by the original owner some years ago, I believe. And then obviously we've got all sorts of very nice additions. We'll just talk very briefly about these castings. So these are the key component that's come from Polymodel Engineering. And we'll talk about that Penrhos Grange, Torquay Manor swap over when we get to it. So yeah, bought as a sort of part built project. Kind of promised I wasn't going to do that, but I saw it on the traders website, and I'm not a massive Great Western fan by any means. I'm definitely not anti Great Western. I can't be. I've got a Manor, a Speedy, and a 9F in the workshop. But yeah, I saw it and I thought, actually, I think I could do something with that, and I think the price was okay. There is a fully certified boiler. It's twice working pressure boiler. There's still a bit of way to go for that yet, but I'm pretty confident and happy that'll be a good one. And then obviously there was all this sort of assembled-ish. Actually, when I bought it, all the cylinders were mounted, all the wheel sets were in properly. They have been in properly. We'll talk over them in a little bit. I'll sit on the bench. We'll talk through that sort of stuff. And there was all inside motion, the outside motion, which is all. I'll just bring it down here, so you can probably see it. All these bits and pieces clattering around on the bench, and again we'll go over this in a bit more detail. So yeah, she was pretty complete, and she also had a complete tender, which maybe sold it for me, I don't know. But yeah, so I've got a lot of components. I basically started looking through it. My background is sort of engineering and aviation. I've done some steam work. I've done sort of restoration work full size, all that kind of good stuff. So I'm happy with a set of files, pretty happy with the lathe. Didn't have the milling machine when I bought this one. I've only had that about 12 months, but I'm getting more confident with that. And actually there's a component for the 5-inch gauge Manor on there as well. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, so that's the loco itself. There's a face, smoke box and all that. There's some work to do. This smoke box saddle needs renewing. I've got a brand new cast into machine for that. So that'll be an interesting exercise. And then you've got all these kind of pot sockets. I'll just put away where I've been making bits and pieces. So the initial sort of job, as it was to strip it down and look at what was going on. As you can see, so these are eccentric straps, and I'll show you these on the jig in a minute. Got the way shaft all come out, got drop links. You've got these go on the, so these are the gland packing points for the cylinders. Yeah. So there's plenty to do. There's a unmachined steam brake casting there to be done, and then obviously making new parts and bits and pieces. So yeah, I mean, this isn't even all of it. There's loads of stuff. And what we'll do is I'll take you back to the bench and we'll go through some of the bits in detail that I've been doing. Right, okay, so going a bit of head chop off mode, but hopefully the idea is I'll show you some of the detailed stuff. So I've mentioned a couple of times that this is a sort of a slight hybrid engine, and that she's basically a Torquay Manor principally from the drawings, but she's also got some Penrhos Grange components. So I think what's happened is the chap who originally put some of this together started doing a Torquay Manor back in the day, sort of gone off it, done other things, come back and discovered that Polymodel Engineering and I don't know can't remember who the designer is now, but the Penrhos Grange design was there, and they were doing lots of exciting new things at the time for CNC, sort of machining, castings, accurate scale stuff. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. So this is the left-hand cylinder for my 5-inch gauge loco for the Manor. And what you've basically got is you've got piston, your main piston. Got your valve as well. So this is piston valves. So there is a set of small piston heads on a valve spindle to go in there. That's your main cylinder. And basically all the internals are sort of done. They've also had the internal parts pressed in. And I don't know whether these have been affixed with some kind of, Loctite type stuff or whatever. But they're very finely detailed. A very nice set of castings. So this is the rear cylinder cover, and you've got these little blow-off things as well that apparently all work and that. And you know, there's quite a bit of work to do. Got all the covers and everything. It's just got a bit of work to do on bits and pieces of it. But essentially, I now need to make the Penrhos Grange cylinders fit the Torquay Manor. And that's what this is for. So what you've got a centre line. Turn it that way so you can see it sort of properly. Through the cylinder, obviously through the valves as well. That needs to marry up with the driving axle of the locomotive. To do that, the width, so if you imagine this one, and then there's another one here, and they've got the frame in between that we've just been over, the width has to be correct. So to the Torquay Manor drawings, I can't remember how far it is out now, but basically divide that difference by 2, and that's what this plate does. So this pushes the cylinder out on the frame to put it into the right alignment for the driving wheels and for the rods and everything. For this. So this comes off the driving wheel. The name's escaped me now, I can't believe it. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And then that attaches to your crosshead, which attaches to your piston. And then obviously the piston drives driving wheels round, and then obviously all the motion and whatever. So yeah, so that's what this big metal plate at the back's for. So there is quite a bit of work to do and go around because of the sort of that decision made. And it's fine. The old plates are really badly corroded when I picked it up. So these are actually new ones. I want to say they're about 4mm thick, but I'm pretty sure I measured it all in Imperial. I have to switch between the two just because it's just the way the world is these days from time to time. So yeah, so there's the cylinders. Really nice. I mean, goodness knows how much they cost the original buyer, and I wouldn't want to buy new ones again. But yeah, there you go. So yeah, so there's that to sort out. I think the original owner had done something about it, and it seems to be okay. When I first got the engine, I stripped it mostly down. Started, you know, there's a couple of things that sort of caught my eye straight away that sort of needed rectifying. And I've got a bit of a black museum we'll go through in a little bit. But yeah, there's a couple of things, sort of in general anyway, when you pick up these kind of sort of part builts, or it's been run and it's worn out, you've got to be a little bit careful with what you're getting. This, had you bought it and just wanted to, you know, get someone at your local model engineering club to sort it out and run it for you, probably wouldn't have been a very good buy. For me, I wanted something that I could get on with, to, you know, come in my workshop, develop the tools I need, some of the skills I wanted to sort of work on as well. I say I've done engineering, but not sort of things like milling machines and lathes and stuff. Didn't have much use of that in the Air Force. But yeah, so there's been plenty to do. And one of those things is jigs. So I'll take you around some of the jigs I've had to make and some of the jobs I've got on, and then we'll look at that from there. So one of the first things I saw was on the loco, you've got the eccentric straps, which are these things. These drive off the axle, and when we go and have a look at the chassis again in a bit, I'll sort of show you what comes off there. When you build these engines, no matter what size it was, you're always best building them. So if you've got 4 items that all do the same thing, like these eccentric straps, good example, try and make them all the same. Because when you come to time your locomotive, when you come to set your piston or slide valves or whatever engine it's got, if you've got bits that are all different sizes, they're all having slightly different impacts on that end point. Basically, your valve gear from A to, you know, A through B, C, D, and whatever else. I mean, this one's got rocking arm covers and all that kind of stuff. We'll go into that in a future video or whatever. If you make them all the same size and in the same positions, you're not going to be too far away. And then you've got the adjustment to sort of fine tune it in. What I found with the 9F when I was doing that was there was a couple of things on that weren't quite set up right. And it just needed things slightly shifting, a new bit here and there, and 2 things the same length. It makes a big difference. So, with that said, jigs. So this is basically, this part is a dummy axle. This is actually a dummy eccentric centre. So if I put that on there, you can kind of get the gist of it. Probably can't see this too well, but there's a centre line all the way down the centre, a sort of a vertical line as well. On here, I've also set 45 degrees. So originally, this jig set the eccentrics that are on the wheel set on the engine. That means that each pair is set at 45 degrees as to the drawing, and that's the Penrhos Grange dimension. Because basically all the valve gear on this engine is Penrhos Grange to feed into the cylinders. This thing. A lot of the other bits are Torquay Manor, and again we'll keep going over that as we go through. But essentially, this jig. So I've used it to set the eccentrics on the axle because I had to have all the axles apart and I had to quarter them, the wheel sets. And again, we'll take you to the main bench and we'll look at that. But now what I've done is I've put a dummy eccentric on the axle here. Now I don't know if this will come off, but probably not. It's probably tight on, that's fine. And what you can do now, that dimension is set on the eccentric. Eccentric strap goes on. You can line up with your centre line, and then the rods that come off the eccentric strap. These are Model Engineer's laser, like cut out in a fret. So there's like 4 of them. Here they all are in a little jumble. And you braze on the little bit at the end, and then you've got to machine them. So I've done some brazing. I've got to clean some of this off. I've still got some of them to braze. The key thing here is you can mount them on the jig. There's a hole I've got to drill to the dimension from the centre of the axle to the end of the eccentric. And essentially, you can shim if they're too short, which hopefully they aren't, or machine off together to set them all up. The idea being that every single one then will be from centre to centre, same length. If you're going to be building engines, you'll have more jigs than you will have engines, I should imagine. So I'm just rebuilding this manor for now, and obviously we've got Speedy to do, and there'll be jigs for that. But to get the setup right, so you've got a chance of getting it close for when the engine runs, this is the kind of setup you might want to think about. There are other ways to do it. I mean, you just get a CNC machine to do it all out of computer design if that's what you want. But this is the way I've had to do it. Seems to work so far, and we'll talk about the wheel sets next, and that jig, and then some of the other jobs. Cool. Right, back on the workbench. So I'm going to try and explain this jig to you. I'll do my best. I picked it out of one of the many model engineering books that you can get. And this seemed to be the most straightforward one and the one I understood the most. There are loads of different ways. You just Google it, dead easy. Some of it's very sort of precision measurement based. This just seemed to be the most sensible option I had at the time. Well, and I'd probably do it again this way anyway. And it seems to have worked. So that's the main thing for me. Manor driving wheels. So when I first got this engine, it came with a load of all the rods and stuff like that just wouldn't fit. And you could see they couldn't fit. Fine. Okay. So I thought, right, I'll remeasure and set up the rods, maybe just machined them wrong or whatever. They were machined to centres on the drawing and they were very well done. But I don't think that turned out not to be the problem. The problem was actually the driving wheels themselves. So these, I don't know if you can see it too well. Just bring it. Cut my head off for a bit. You don't need to see that. So you can see here, look. There's a wheel sets mounted in this sort of frame. And what you've got here, you've got as bob on 90 degrees as I can get it horizontally. And then on the other side, you can just see it there vertically. That face there. So you've got 2 faces. And the idea here is it's mounted between centres. And basically one of the rod pins and the other rod pin should both settle on those faces. And then you fix it in place and it's 90 degrees from each other. 89 degrees, 90 degrees, 91 degrees. Some people say it doesn't matter. As far as I know, maybe that doesn't matter. Just be aware you don't want them too far out. They need to be as close to that 90 degrees as you can make it. And as you can see, well, maybe you can't see too well, but it butts up straight to there. And it doesn't matter what size that pin is, it works. So my driving axles have slightly bigger pins on. These are slightly smaller. This is a rear wheel set because it was the easiest one to take out. but it all work the same. So I put them all in here. These have all had new axles, so the red section here, all these are new. I've had all the, these got nice roller bearings on actually. All the roller bearings off, the wheel sets off. When I discovered this problem, basically I'd come to the conclusion, right, okay, we've got to take them all apart. So I've had all these wheel sets apart, new axles. I've Loctited the axles to the wheel set, and I've also then afterwards, once it's in this position, drilled and pinned them. It's not the best way to do it. There are those who really, you know, I did actually put the axle in the freezer just behind me for a bit to try and get that pinch in. While it seems to work fine. I think Loctite's done the job, and I have pinned it just to make sure they don't slip off. But hopefully you can see that. Okay, so I'll just bring that closer to the camera for a bit. It's a bit heavy and a bit, but yeah, hopefully you can see that pin there. Sits against that angle there. And again, I'll just turn it around so I don't drop the whole lot. And again on there like that. Okay, and that sets them 90 degrees. Come out what the pin is. It's not the only way to do it. It's the way I've done it. It seemed the most sensible. I'm all right with a set of files, so that was fine by me. And yeah, so far I've made about 5 jigs for different things, and we'll talk of them as we go along. But if you like building steam engines, get like your jigs as well. And this was in one of the sort of generic model engineering handbooks anyway. Right, hope you found that part useful. We'll go on to some of the motion and bits next, I think. So we're just going to talk about a few bits of the motion and stuff. So some of the, well, motion, valve gear, whatever you want to see it. I said earlier, if you're going to make something, make them in pairs if you can when you're doing this sort of work. These are like the long reach rods from, so these come from the expansion links through the die blocks, and these move the rocking arms. So a lot of valve gear, I'm not going to get into technical valve gear. I'm sure you're quite capable of falling asleep on your own. But one of the things I've learned is the key thing is if you've got 2 things that are doing the same job on different parts of on the loco, try and make them at least the same length and the same centers, and that'll really help you down the line. That is probably one of the issues, that when you get an engine, seems to run okay, looks nice, good paintwork, and then you can never get the thing to sit on the timing, sound right, and all that kind of thing. I mean, I had it with a 9F when I first picked it up. It's just 2 things weren't made the same. It happens. And again, if you pick up something like this engine, which is sort of a part built from someone from whenever ago, this is potentially what you're going to find. So make them the same. They're the old ones. They'll go in the bin eventually, and these will be the new ones. So this is quite an interesting thing. So these are from Model Engineer's Laser. Let's get the old one up so you can sort of see what we're looking at. What you do on these is you've got like a little fret, and these little extra, I don't know if you can see it, let's turn them that way. These little extra bits, and you basically braze all this together with the whole set for the steel pin through, with the bolt through it, and then you mill out that middle section, and that gives you that thing there. Just coming back a bit, there you go. And the same to the other end. So I've got these to do. You need to, I don't know if you can see it too well on the camera. When you do this, there's like a tiny gap for the silver solder to flow through. So that's one of those jobs. Got that to do. I've done the same for the expansion link bits as well. So yeah, so a key thing, if you're going to make 2 of something or 4 of something, and it's on the same engine, try and make it standard size. I'll have to make a little jig for that somehow, for those 2, just to make sure they're drilled. I mean, I did actually drill them already, and they should be perfectly fine now once I've brazed them together. But yeah, important stuff. All right, thanks. So another lesson. It's easy to criticise other people's work when you don't know what they've been doing. And I'm sure there'll be some people in the comments on this video will do all that, and that's fine. I find them quite amusing, and thanks for stimulating the channel with YouTube's algorithm or whatever. That's all you're doing, really. Fine by me. But it's sometimes you sort of. I've had a recent thing. Basically, we'll talk through it. This is a steam manifold for the back of the cylinder. I brought the cylinder with me. I haven't. Well done. So this is where the steam collects. This is where the exhaust mounts, and this is what goes up the chimney in the smoke box. On the engine, when I took it all apart, there's a couple of issues. So you've got like this gallery here, look. See where it's all been milled out? Except It's just nicked the corner mounting. So these 4 holes are what mount it to the engine, and I think there's maybe 2 here as well. That's the hole that goes where the exhaust comes out. And as you can probably just see on that camera there, hopefully you can see it. Just nicked the corner of the hole, look, typical. And I picked this up when I took it all apart, and I was like, okay, so I need to make new ones of these. They're fine for, you know, mounting and doing bits and pieces, but I need new ones. Fair enough. And in fact, he'd done it to, I think, just done it to both of them. Yeah, you can just see it on this one. There you go, look, there's that little hole there. So any steam that comes in here from exhaust will be pouring out of this, no matter what gasket you put on it. That's just not going to work. It's going to be all over. It's all right. Well, bit of bright mild steel or whatever it is. Fine, I make one myself. Make a couple more. When I got the mill, I had an odd job to do on the mill, so I set the vice up. Can't remember what it was for. The vice alignment didn't matter for that job, but I forgot. So when I came to want to mill out this slot on this one, I did exactly the same thing this one done. So there you go. So as you can see, I'm partway through milling. I've done all the holes, I've measured it all out, done all the sort of messing around, and I'll just align it. Where are you? There you are. And there you go, just done the same thing. You just see a bit of daylight shining in the bottom of there. Sorry, it's a bit of a mess. I haven't you look, there's not a big dent in it where I should have thrown it across the workshop, but I try not to do that these days. Hopefully you can see that okay. It's focused in. So yeah, so I've done exactly the same thing. Lesson learned. It's one of the other things I should have thought about really is when I put them out, when I mounted the sort of holding the vice on there, I didn't align it to the head because at the time it didn't matter, and I forgot. So now I've got to go and make another one. Now I have made another one, and it's actually on the loco on here with the other cylinder mounted, and that's gone fine. But it's mounted on there, and I can't show and prove it to you. And I've got the other one in the mill ready to do next. And in fact, I seem to be making more videos and I'm machining stuff, so I'll actually spend a bit of time doing that. I've got a bit of footage of me doing that, doing the other one. But yeah, so you know, it's easy, I guess, to criticise other people's work, but you shouldn't. That's not the aim here. The aim is to get the engine running, so we can enjoy it. It's easily done. You will make 2.5 engines for every engine you build minimum, and that engine and a half will just be in scrap bits in your bins and whatever. That seems to be the way it goes. So yeah, so little lesson there. If you were getting into sort of taking on part built engines, if you're thinking about building one from scratch, you know, go for it. Don't be shy. Just be aware that you're going to make mistakes, and that's going to hit you a little bit at times. Because when I did that, I haven't been on the mill since. I've set the new one up, but I haven't started. Well, did I do this? No, I did make the other one. But it is kind of frustrating. It does happen. Don't worry about it. It's just the way model engineering is. So yeah, right, we'll move on to something else. So got to the other big shiny bit. This is the Manor's tender. It's been made really well. Unfortunately, she has suffered a little bit of rust. You probably won't see it in the videos, but I'll tell you about it because, you know, honest like that. Around the springing and the wheels and everything. The brakes aren't set up right. They're all a bit stiff and a bit everywhere. But so there's still a bit of work to do on this. But yeah, it's been, you know, someone's put a lot of time and effort. I had to do some work to the tank and stuff inside, and I've not actually got round to filling it with water yet to make sure it's watertight. So, but yeah, but as you can see, someone's done a lovely job. I mean, all these rivets are all really nicely done. They're all relatively straight lines. I think she's had a little bit of whatever, but yeah, this is the bad side, by the way. That goes a little better, but yeah, someone spent a lot of time and effort on it. So we've got a tender just about there. I did modify my 9F tender to sit on, and I'll probably do something similar to this as well eventually, but it's a little bit of time off doing anything like that. So you've got nice dome covers and everything else, and you can actually get quite good access into the rear of this. And there's a hand pump in there and everything as well already. But yeah, that's the Manor. So I probably mentioned it already. I'm not a massive Great Western aficionado. Don't know everything about them, but I just seem to have collected once I saw this engine, And I thought, right, actually, I fancy that as a project. I'll take that on. And I went and got it a couple of days after seeing it, I think. And in a way, it's been very challenging, as I've just mentioned about those manifolds where I got it all wrong and whatever. But you learn by doing in this sort of hobby. If you fancy taking on something like this, have a good think about it. You're going to come across these times. You're going to get frustrated. I think I've made more videos in here than I have really done any work recently. I've actually spent a bit of time reorganising the workshop and everything else. But yeah, it's sometimes you go off it a little bit, but not for long. So anyway, back on with the Manor. 9F's all put away. She's ready to the next run if that's what we decide to go do. Maybe a Christmas run or something like that. I'm not planning anything too soon. Yeah. So yeah, I'll just do a closeout and we'll catch up there. Yeah. So hopefully you found that interesting and useful. Just like to say a big thanks to everyone who subscribed. I hope you all enjoy watching the videos. I do enjoy making them. It's finding the time to sit down and sort of pull it all together, really. Once every 2 weeks or so seems to be the sort of the normal. But I will try and get some more out. I was a bit conscious of the fact there was a lot of running stuff for the 9F in our little group at Wash Valley Model Engineers. They're a good bunch. I will get some more running videos when we obviously go out there, but now winter's really here. You probably might hear it in the background a little bit. It is quite cold. It's quite miserable. Probably won't get out. I think there's maybe an option of running in 7th of December 2024, but there's a New Year's Day run as well, so maybe we'll go down for that. But I would like to get on with doing some work on the Manor. 9F's all tidied and she's all put to bed, really, but she's ready to go. But yeah, it'd be nice to sort of push this along, and we'll keep you along for the ride. Like, share, subscribe. Please leave comments, good or bad. I read them all. Don't really mind either way. Positive does help a little bit, but there you go. Get some interesting characters in there. And I hope you enjoy it. And I'll see you all again very soon. Thanks very much for watching.